been the most stressful 5 minutes of my life. But thank you so much for everybody that's joined us, and welcome to our first Q&A stream of the season. Obviously, this is a little bit different. As you can see, I've got the FPL Academy up on here at the moment because I was trying to see whether this was working. But I'm glad it is finally working. So hello, hello, hello. I can see Helen in the chat. I can see James in the chat. Johnny Hotline, Caged Paps. I'm not sure who that is. Nice little nickname there. Caroline's in the chat. Vicky as well. Hi, Vicky as well. New member too. And Indy as well. I hope you like the new screen, and you should be able to start seeing you up on the screen here as well in the members chat, which I thought was quite cool. So these are the new graphics I've got. I've got a nice little loading screen. Oh, get rid of you. I got a nice little loading screen, and I've got a nice little kind of screen here as well where I can share stuff. And I've just got a kind of screen share over here. So I've got loads of tabs open that I can kind of run through stuff, which is quite cool. Cage Pack says, I'm the other Andy. Hello, other Andy, the superior Andy, some would say. And Indy says, breathe. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, got a little bit warm, and I was trying my best to stay calm, trying to get a new stream sorted. But thank you very much for bearing with me. Hopefully, everybody is able to get on. I've been considering starting a bit of a WhatsApp chat for all of us, so it's a lot easier to talk to you all, because obviously it could be a bit hard sometimes on school. So let me know what you think about that. Caroline, I forgot to submit a question, but sure we all have similar debates. Haaland, Salah, three strikers, too many choices. I know, there's far too many choices. FPL Golfer says hi all, and Helen says love the graphics. Thank you very much. I'm glad you like them. So let's get started. I'm going to do the questions from the people that have chucked it into school at the end. So the people that are here live get their questions answered first, basically. Caroline says, yeah, Haaland, Salah, three strikers. I mean, if you look at my team at the moment, so this is my team at the moment, and obviously there's going to be way more tinkering yet. I've got no Haaland. So I think that's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. Review obviously dropped not that long ago, and they had Haaland in it, and now I'm seeing Haaland in a lot more drafts, and I think that's kind of coincidental with having Haaland in the review team. I'm going with Salah at the moment. He's going to be my captain game week 1, but obviously no Haaland game week 2 is going to be very, very interesting. So we'll see how we get on there. FPL Rank Chaser says, hey Andy, Yeovil internet again? No, my internet should be solid now. I should have no issues with my internet now. So fingers crossed. And looking forward to seeing you at Fest, by the way. Helen says WhatsApp, great. Yeah, I think WhatsApp might be a good idea if we could do that, because I think the chat would make things a bit better as well. And lots of people are saying that's good. FPL Rank Chaser says, is that you, FPL Sally, from the com team? It is. She gave me loads of stick last year for how the com team was beating the Scoutcast team. We'll be doing it again this year. So if any of you want to get involved in the Scoutcast com team next year, yeah, drop Rank Chaser a chat. Yes, I've got Raya. Helen says I've got Raya. I do have Raya at the moment. Just feel like he's maybe a little bit of a better way into that Arsenal defence, considering Gabriel and Saliba are 0.5 more expensive than him. I want somebody from the Arsenal defence, but actually their first 5 fixtures aren't, great, I wouldn't say. But you'd back them to probably get a clean sheet against most teams. So I love it, because we've almost gone back to FPL from like 10 years ago, where I'm picking 4.5 million defenders and that's it, because I just want all that money in attack, which is great. So James says, how much confidence do we have in Salah going big? I'm unsure with his tailing off of form last season, new system and manager. Yeah, it's which way you want to go, really. I mean, a lot of teams are going to be impacted because of the Euros. Even Man City, it sounds like a lot of their players are going to be getting some minutes in those first 2 games, but whether they're going to be starting both, I'm not sure. And that includes Rodri, obviously, that includes Foden. So I think that does hurt Haaland quite a bit. And obviously, we saw Haaland wasn't exactly the same last year. Obviously, he's had a summer off, so that's going to help him quite a bit. But so Salah's come back looking great. Depends how Slot wants to play that front 3 with Liverpool. I'm seeing a few rumours that Salah could play up top. I'm not 100% sure whether that's going to happen or not, but it looks like he could potentially be quite wide playing up top. So it's a tough one. I've seen Joboslai in a few drafts. I don't hate it. I think he's starting to be rumoured to be maybe getting a little bit further forward. But Salah, opening game of the season, he always does well against Ipswich as well, who could be a baptism of fire for Ipswich. I feel like Salah's a good shout. There are going to be some Salah Haaland drafts that are going to be starting to come out now as well. And I don't think that's awful. It's just what you do with the rest of the money, really. I took Foden out today for Odegaard because I'm worried that Foden's not going to get the minutes in the first couple of games. And it meant that I could afford Gibbs White, which I quite liked. So, yeah, if you like this team, let me know. Johnny Hotline says, I really think Joe's tactics of price points is one to use this season with so many options and inability to afford them all. I agree. The only thing I'm worried about is that some of these price points are now ridiculous. So you've got those price points in midfield, so kind of 10 or lower. So you can afford Saka, you can afford Palmer, although Palmer's 10.5. You can afford, Odegaard, whatever it is you want to afford. But trying to get back up to Haaland, that's the tricky thing. Like 15 million for Haaland, and you've got to try and get back up to him. I'm just resigned to the fact that if I go without him, I'm going without him for the first 5, 6 weeks. And it could be that you wildcard early. But for 15 million, I just think, how are you going to cover him? There's no way I can get to him easily if I don't start with him, unless I bank my five free transfers very, very early on. So, yeah, I do get the idea of price points, but price points I think only work if you're going with Haaland. If you're not going with Haaland, you can't get back up to him, I don't think. Indy says I'm going Salah and Haaland. Yeah, I don't blame you. They've got to smash it, haven't they? Haaland has 100% got to smash it for you every week. If he plays against Ipswich and gets just a goal, he's not worth 15 mil. So he has got to smash it. Saying that though, last year he played against Burnley first game of the season and got 2 goals, so maybe he is worth it. FPL Diz says, is there anyone you would consider essential at this point? Looks like Isak is the most owned. I love Isak. I genuinely do. He's on penalties as well. He's starting to show why they paid so much money for him. I would say, I mean, you look at my team there, and I've got triple Newcastle against Southampton, first game of the season. Newcastle were imperious at home last year. I really do think Isak is up there for me as you've got to have him personally. But then if you've got Haaland and you've got Salah, you're struggling for funds a little bit. I would say the first 2 names on my team sheet, I should say three actually. The first 3 names on my team sheet this year were Salah, Isak, and Palmer, and they went straight in. And I think Palmer's being overlooked again a little bit now because Nkunku's started. He's had a good preseason, and people are saying it's a bargain. I think people are going to regret not going Palmer. Top scoring player last year, 10.5 million, which is what he should be. I think Palmer is up there for me as well. Um, Cage Pap says, who are the top 3 in your squad that are nailed, not leaving your squad for any reason? Palmer's about the Euros. I'm assuming he's going to come back and just play. Obviously, he hasn't played yet. But if you looked at my team now and I said, who am I not going to get rid of at all? It's Salah, Isak, and then it's one of Gordon and Watkins. I think they're the 4 for me that are like I would really be surprised if any of them aren't there. If I did make a draft with Haaland, which I haven't done yet, it would be one of Isak or Watkins going. It'd probably be Watkins. So I think Isak and Salah are my 2 nailed players. Helen says, going to have to pause. We'll check in again in a bit. Kids, no worries. I've had to do that while I'm streaming before. James, at the I'm no Haaland and Salah, but do have a Haaland draft I quite like, which I'll probably cave and go with. No Haaland and no Salah is very, very interesting. You could do an awful lot with that money, and I'm assuming your midfield looks absolutely gorgeous. But no Haaland and no Salah. I mean, they're the 2 probably biggest captaincy shouts for game week 1 and game week 2, both against Ipswich. So yeah, it could be a tough one. I'd love to see your team though. Um, James says no. I mean, I have Salah and no Haaland. Yeah, so basically like I've got, which is nice. Indy, I'm toying between Salah and Eze, or 2 players between 9.5 and 10. I like Salah and Eze, but obviously 2 players between 9.5 and 10. You can get Saka and you can get Foden. Although Foden, will he be back and get the minutes? We're not sure. I do like those midfielders that are 9 to 10.5. Like I think they've priced them really, really well this year because you literally can't own them all. I don't see any reason why Palmer can't carry on like he did last year. I genuinely can't, especially with the fact he's still on pens. I don't think Nkunku's going to take them from him. I'm not completely sure where he's going to be playing up top there for Chelsea, but I don't see why Palmer can't carry on what he's doing. And even if he does 75% of what he did last year, I think he's worth it. James, I do love Palmer. I love Palmer as well. He was so good at the Euros when he came on as well. FPL Rankings. Andy, did you hear Mark's thoughts on Black Box, where he talked up the benefits of having a strong 13, 14 players to help make it easier to roll lots of transfers into the wild card? Makes a lot of sense to me. I feel like this is going to be one of those years where if you can start strong, you're just going to be loving life for the whole first half of the season. Like if you can pick your first 11 really, really well this year, usually you can start strong. And yeah, it's quite nice for 5, 6 weeks, but then everybody catches up because they're using their transfers. Whereas this time, if you can start strong and not have to make many moves to begin with, you're banking like 2, 3, 4 transfers, and then you can wildcard in game week 5 or 6. For me, that's just ridiculous because then you can just keep rolling your transfers and you can just keep having three or four in the bank. And I think that could be very, very overpowered personally. We'll have to wait and see whether that happens. And obviously, you can't guarantee that that's going to happen with your team. I think picking a strong 13, 14 isn't going to be too hard this year. If you look at mine, I got Barco on the bench who we're thinking could start and could be a good 4 million, enabler. And then I got Armstrong as well, who did bits in the championship with Southampton. He's on penalties as well, and he's going to come up and score a few goals, hopefully. I don't think that's awful either. You've also got Juan Pedro if he does start the season. So there's some good options there. I think having a good squad is obviously important, but you're going to have to cut those funds somewhere. And I've done it in my defence, obviously. So, yeah, I do agree with him. And if you can start strong, I think you're going to be absolutely loving life this year. Caroline Owen, is the Rodgers hype just hype? Yeah, I think so. I'm assuming you're on about Morgan Rodgers there from Villa. I think so. He ended the season very, very well. The thing I'm worried about with Villa is there's so many options up top. Obviously, they could be getting rid of Diaby, but I think Bailey is a really good shout. I think Bailey could be somebody who's finally coming into his own. I do like Rodgers. He's only 5 million. I just don't think I would want to be starting him like every week. Like if you've got somebody like Gibbs White that's just a little bit more expensive. I know he's 1.5 more expensive, but if you can get someone like Gibbs White and you can rotate him with someone like Armstrong, something like that, I think I quite like that. But the idea of kind of having to play Rodgers one week, I don't think I would like. I wouldn't mind it if after 2, 3 weeks he does quite well, and then I can get him in and he can free up funds to get Haaland, which I might have to do at some point. But I haven't gone near him personally. I think I would probably pay point 0.5 more and get a Hudson Odoi or somebody like that personally. Cage Pap says, I wonder where Dewsbury Hall slots into Chelsea and what impact that has. I was really underwhelmed with that transfer, if I'm perfectly honest. I always liked Dewsbury Hall at Leicester, and I know Joe always used to say he was the Royal Dewsbury Hall. I think he was good for Leicester, and I think he was a nice little neighbour. He did very, very well in the Championship last year if he played Gaffer, but I don't think he's going to have much fantasy impact personally. I could be very, very wrong there, but I just don't think he will. And I don't think you'd be picking him considering you've got Palmer and Nkunku there. If you can go for a cheaper Chelsea midfielder, you're going to be going Nkunku. I feel like Dewsbury Hall would have to do an awful lot to get into our teams. James says, my other main decision is Wood versus Muniz, which I imagine is a common dilemma. Yeah, Wood is starting to get more and more traction again. I don't hate the idea of it. I think I would go Muniz myself. I had a bit of a love affair with Muniz last year. I feel like out of the two of them, I'd rather him. But if we have a look at the fixtures, so I got Lego Mane's fixtures up here, who again I showed this the other day. It's so good. Like his hop on, hop off, I used more than anything else last year. So Nottingham Forest, actually, their first 10 fixtures, they've only got two really tricky fixtures. So you could potentially play Wood every week, apart from in game week 4 and game week 7, and you would be quite happy with that, I think. I'm just looking though, in terms of who would be your fifth midfielder, you just got to make sure that in game week 4 and game week 7, they have quite a nice fixture. So it depends on who that is. But Forest fixtures for the first 10 are really nice. Hence why I'm going Morgan Gibbs White and probably wanting to play in most weeks as well. But if you look at Muniz, Fulham, definitely much more of a mixed bag, but he's got a nice run of three fixtures between game week 2 and game week 4. Now, if we're looking, a lot of people are talking about kind of wild carding around game week 6 potentially. If we're looking at wild carding around game week 6, you wouldn't keep Muniz past game week 4 or 5 anyway, but he does have those three nice fixtures. But Wood definitely has nice fixtures all the way up to game week 10. Is Wood 100% going to get the minutes? I don't think so personally. I think Owunyi's there, and he was definitely their talisman last year. I think I would be going Muniz, and after game week 4, looking to get rid. Personally, Muniz also takes the number 9 shirt. He is their main man now, so I think that's the way I'd be going. Um, Cage Pap says, any signings, especially new to the league, you are interested in? I don't trust them from game week 1, but still, maybe to keep an eye on. Not massively so far, I don't think. United have made a few. So we've signed Xerxes, we've signed Yoro. I mean, I'm not overly enamoured by either of those for FPL purposes, really. I'm trying to think who else have made signings. Chelsea have obviously signed a few, but most of them are youngsters. I think the majority are just going to be tried and tested. So if you look at my team at the moment, there's nobody there. Livramento's a bit of a punt at the moment, but we're thinking Trippier's going to be gone. So I think Livramento's a good shout there. But they're all tried and tested players, apart from on the bench where I've had to go through a few more risks. Barco is getting the minutes pre-season, so we're hoping he's going to do something and not just be the next Nathan Ferguson. Armstrong has scored loads of goals in the Championship. He's coming up with loads of confidence. And then Harwood Bellis, who I'm assuming is still going to have his position when he comes up with Southampton. So I think he could be a really good shout as well. He's only, again, 4 million. So I've got two 4 million defenders on the bench there. So yeah, I think I would struggle to go for too many new signings, but there's been none that have really enamored me so far. Right, the chat, we've got, I think I've gone through most of the questions there. James says, by the way, Smith Rowe at 5.5 for Fulham could be interesting. Yeah, I like that signing. I still think I would pick Andreas Pereira over him at the minute because I want to see Smith Rowe and where he's going to play. It could mean that Pereira drops back a little bit more, but Pereira is pretty much going to be on everything, you would have thought, for Fulham. So I think I'd probably still go for him now, but Smith Rowe could be a really lovely differential player moving forward. I do really like that signing as well. 27 million, mind, but I do like Smith Rowe. Vicky Maddox, hi Vicky, says thoughts on early wildcard. Set up aggressively for the first 3 weeks, no transfers pre-wildcard, and then no transfers for a week or so after the wildcard. Yeah, I like it. I do. I think a lot of people are starting to think about that as well. Kind of starting to think about either game week 4 or game week 6 for a bit of a wildcard. I think if you did that, you would have to do what Matt said earlier, which is make sure you have a strong 14, 15 players there because you're going to want to make sure that you don't need to make any moves. You don't want to have 4 million defenders that aren't going to play and a 4.5 million midfielder that doesn't play on your bench. You want to make sure you've got options. So if you can do that and you can get the game week 3 or 4 without making any transfers and then wildcard, I think that's really strong. You just have to be okay with the fact that those first 3 weeks might not go the way you want them to go. So as long as you're happy with the variance, and then you know that by the time you get to the wildcard, you've got a wildcard, a brand new squad, all that information, and you've then got 4 free transfers after the wildcard. It's a really good shout, I think, personally. And I think a lot of managers will be going that way. There still will be benefits of wildcarding later than that, I will say. But to be honest, most managers wildcard after game week 4 or 5 anyway. So I don't think it's a bad thing to have in the back of your head. Caroline Owen, I really want a 4 million keeper. Is there any? So I, at the moment, have got Valdemarson. I don't think any of the 4 million keepers are going to be starting, to be perfectly honest. If I go on transfers and bring up the 4 million keepers, so yeah, you can see them over there, can't you? Lovely stuff. So max cost 4 million and goalkeepers. Oh, it's gone back up to 5.5 because it's been really helpful. There we go. So Turner, I wouldn't go anywhere near. He's like the 4th choice keeper now, and he's probably going to drop in price. So you definitely don't want to go there. Fabianski, I mean, he's not going to start, but he could obviously get some starts if Areola goes out, so he's 2nd choice there. Bentley, no. Matthews, no, no, no. Valdemarson could, if Fleckens looks kind of ropey in pre-season, so Valdemarson could come in, but I don't see it personally. Everson and Ward, who were absolute legends not that long ago for Leicester, I like 3rd and 4th choice now, so I wouldn't go there either. Heaton is 3rd choice because we got Biendir as our 2nd choice for United. So no, there's none really. I think personally, I would maybe get the Flecken and Valdemarson double up. That's a way of only spending 9.5 million. That's not awful. Areola and Fabianski, that would be 9 million, would it? Is he 5 million, I think, Areola? So if I just change it to 5 million, I'm assuming he is. Oh no, he's 4.5. So that's the other way you could do it. You could do Areola and Fabianski. That isn't awful, but obviously it's West Ham. So those are the 2 ways I would go, I think. Johnny says, thoughts on Mateta? He's currently in my team. He's currently at the Olympics as well. So I'll keep an eye on that because obviously you don't want somebody coming back from the Olympics and not having much of a pre-season. And they've obviously got Edouard, who obviously isn't as good. But I personally think Mateta's not going to be as good because they don't have Elise. They looked unbelievable when they had Elise, Eze, and Mateta, and obviously they don't have Elise now. And all of a sudden, they just get marked a little bit more, don't they? So I think personally, I won't be going Mateta, but I don't mind Crystal Palace options. I think they have some nice fixtures to start with. James says, no way Everson and Ward are back. They are back. I went through a stage where Ward hurt me so much for like 4, 5, 6 weeks. I think that was the COVID year, actually. Yeah, absolutely killed me. So I'm not happy they're back. Right, let's have a look at some of the questions that other people put in as well. Matt Kent, looking forward to tonight's stream. Glad to see you in the stream, my man. Helen says, thanks, Andy. I know you're in the chat anyway, but I'll have a look. A question about 6.5 mids for start of season. How would you rank Johnson and Kunku and Szoboszlai? I actually answered this in the thing, so I do apologise for that. But I would have Nkunku first easily. I actually put Brennan next, then Szoboszlai. But looking at the pre-season, I think Szoboszlai might be kind of on par with Brennan Johnson. So Nkunku definitely. I think Nkunku's a lovely shout. I think he's done well in pre-season. He took the penalty when Palmer wasn't there, so that's good if Palmer ever misses minutes. So I think Nkunku would definitely be top for me. Don't think I'd want Nkunku and Palmer, but I think Nkunku's definitely top. And then Brennan and Szoboszlai are probably neck and neck. If we look at the fixtures as well, Spurs, where are you, Spurs? There we are. I think their fixtures are a mixed bag. They've got two nice fixtures to start with, but then Newcastle away and Arsenal at home and United at home. I'm not expecting an awful lot from that. So you've got to be hoping for something from those first two games. And then Szoboszlai, we've seen Liverpool. Their fixtures are absolutely beautiful, the first five. Ipswich, Brentford at home, Forest at home, and Bournemouth at home. Lovely stuff. So I think Szoboszlai is quite a nice shout. I'd want some Liverpool coverage in my team, so it's not an awful shout personally. Andy Robinson, I still haven't done any real drafts, but general topics would be: do you take anything from the pre-season games? Most say they're fairly useless, but it's all we've got. They are fairly useless. They really are. Like, I wouldn't take too much from it. The only thing I would ever take from it is when a player is playing well in pre-season in a system where you know he's going to play there, and the fixtures are nice still anyway. Like that's the only time I touch him. I think that for every Nathan Redmond, there's been an awful player as well where it just hasn't worked, like an Andre Gray or something like that. So take it always with a pinch of salt. Friendlies are horrendous, and people get so caught up in friendlies, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. Um, Indy says Mateta slander. I think not. Sorry, mate. I know you absolutely love Mateta because you finished with him last year. Bashir says Raya, Mikalenko, Byrne, Robertson, Fernandez, Eze, Saka, Gordon, Salah, Havertz, Isak. Subs, Fabianski, Robinson, Bellis, Stewart. I have the option to go Robertson to Barco, Havertz to Watkins. Yep, I like that personally. Byrne, I would look out for Byrne, maybe go for Livramento instead. Mikalenko, yeah, I don't hate that at all. I think I probably would. If it can change Havertz to Watkins, I'm not a massive Havertz fan in FPL, and I think Watkins is the way to go there. So, yeah, especially the start of the season. When Europe starts for Villa, it might get a little bit trickier, but start of the season, I like it. Cage Pat, 50 million for Elise. I wonder what they'll do with that. I know, 50 mil. It's a great player, though. Absolutely lovely player. Helen, back just in time. No worries, Helen. Did you hear your answer to your question? I hope you did. Bashir, or do I do Gordon and Morgan Gibbs White and Bernal Robinson to Gavardio? Ooh, I do like Gavardio. I think Gavardio, if he plays in the same system, in the same role, he's a lock. Like I don't see how you can't get him. I like Gordon though. I love Gordon, and he's at home. The only thing I will say about Gordon, if we look at the fixtures again, so there's Newcastle, lovely first fixture, and then they've got three away fixtures, and they just weren't the same away last year. We'd be hoping that they turn their fortunes around away from home, but a lovely first fixture against Fulham, against Southampton. Dimitro, has there been a tendency that players who are at international tournaments during the summer start more slowly or get rotated more? Yes. Pep Guardiola literally came out today and said they're going to have to kind of come back slowly. I think that hurts Palmer, hurts Saka. Not, but yeah, well, maybe not Palmer. Hurts Foden, hurts Saka, hurts Rodri, players like that, and it means that teams might start slower. Teams like Man City do tend to start a little bit slower anyway. Arsenal started fairly well last year, but obviously there was a lot of issues with Gabriel, but we won't talk about that. So yes, I would definitely keep an eye out for that. I'm hoping we would hear a little bit about that before the season starts anyway. If players like Foden and Saka and that haven't had any minutes pre-season and they're talking about them not really training, I don't think I'd go there. I think doing what Matt said earlier, you just make sure you have that price point you can get to them when they're fit and ready to play. But if you're also following Caroline's idea, you're going to wildcard potentially in 4 or 5 anyway, so you could start without them. I took Foden out today and I put Odegaard in. So I've got Odegaard and Salah who haven't done anything over the summer apart from train and be ready. So I quite like that idea. Vicky, thoughts on Raya? Normally I would just do a cheap goalkeeper, but I'm really leaning towards Raya. He is the cheapest nail defender for Arsenal, and it's actually a saving to go from him and a 4.5 defender over Gabriel Saliba. Yeah, that's literally what I've done today. So I took out Gabriel and took out Sanchez, who I was hoping would be number one, but it doesn't look like he will be. and brought in Raya and I brought in Anderson, which meant I could upgrade to Gibbs White, which I thought was quite nice. So I don't hate the idea of Raya. The only thing I will say is not so much Saliba, but Gabriel, he does have that goal threat, and his XG is always high throughout the season compared to the other defenders. So I would bear in mind that Gabriel could punish you because he could get a header. But if I have a look at the defenders, I don't think he's that highly owned. If I look at their team selected by, Saliba is well clear. Gabriel's only 12%. So he's not going to hurt you that much. Saliba, if he scores at 40%, will, but I don't see it personally. Like Gabriel's always had the bigger goal threat. Gavardio at 32 is interesting, though. Bashir says Morgan gives White over Gordon just for X minutes, set pieces and penalties. I'm thinking Gordon could easily be subbed off at 60, 70. He could be. I mean, our Harvey Barnes is there as well, but Gordon's the talisman there as well. Like, and he wins so many penalties at home. He's unbelievable at home if you look at his record. But Morgan Gibbs White, yeah, he's got the penalties. He's arguably Nottingham Forest's talisman as well. So I don't hate it. I got both, so I don't hate it at all. If you can use that 0.5 and you'd be much happier with your team, then I don't hate it. Just make sure you have ESAC because you want some kind of cover. James, I'm thinking of starting with Gordon and dropping him to Nkunku for game week 3. Don't hate it. Don't hate it at all. So you drop him for Nkunku when his run of 5 lovely fixtures starts. Whereas Newcastle, that's when it kind of gets a little bit ropey. So yeah, I don't hate that at all. But remember, that's you using a transfer. You want to try and get the 5 bank ones as soon as possible. Henry Hall says, what time is the YouTube stream again? 9 o'clock or 9:05 once I've sorted out the YouTube. Bashir says Calafiori could play Gabriel's number. He could. I think he's probably going to play left back, but even then, I think he's just for cover so far this year. So I think it would be Timber left back and then Gabriel Saliba White. I don't see him changing it massively. He's always been one for kind of keeping it the same. That left back role was horrendous for them last year. So I think Timber will play it, and I think Calafiori will play either left back or centre back, depending on where he's needed. But I don't think he's going to start straight away. He's still a young lad. He's only 22, I think. So I think it'll take him a little while to bleed in. Cage Paps, Gavardio finished the season well with a few attacking returns. I guess that's why he's 32%. Yeah, I agree. But if he's playing that same role, same tactic, he's going to kill it again. And I didn't have him last year. I went Walker instead, and it ruined me. Paul Evans, the last couple of seasons, the template has felt very safe, and most managers got off to a fairly decent start. This year, I can see about 5 different teams that you could label fairly template. That's why I'm seriously considering bench boost game week 1. My question would be, am I mad? There are lots of things that need to fall in place before I commit. Where are Tony and Richarlison going to be being the main one? I don't hate bench boost game week 1 this year because there are going to be way less double game weeks and blank game weeks later on in the season because of the way the FA Cup replays are now. So I don't hate bench boost game week 1. The other thing I don't hate is if you bench boost this week or game week 1, you then don't need to worry about trying to bench boost with a potential Haaland in your team and trying to get a good bench as well, which I think is just going to be horrendous. So I don't hate bench boost 1. Get it out of the way. We've got some mystery chip in January. Who knows what that will be? Could just be another wild card. I don't know. But I don't hate bench boost game week 1. So no, I do not think you are mad. I don't think it's a bad tactic. I think it could work really, really well for you. But if you've got Haaland and Salah, good luck trying to get a good-looking bench boost game week 1 team. But we'll see. Never know. Could work. Vicky Maddox, you mentioned not liking Havertz for FPL. Do you worry about Jesus taking minutes from him? Not massively. Jesus, I'm not a massive fan of him in FPL. He had a good kind of spell a couple of years ago for Arsenal, but Havertz has always been that kind of player where he's not really a massive goal scorer. And I just think for Arsenal, I would rather own other players for Arsenal. I'd rather own any of their defenders over Havertz. I'd rather own Saka. I'd rather own Odegaard as well. And I'd rather own Raya. And I just think there's so many more players I'd rather own than Havertz. And I think with all the other options we've got up front at the moment, I can just see better players to own than Havertz. Personally, I could be wrong there. It's nothing to do with Jesus. I just think there's better options. Case perhaps, will this be Mondays going forward or will it move closer to deadlines? It'll probably move closer to deadlines. So as much as I can, I'll try and do them on the Friday night if the deadline's Saturday. There will be sometimes I'll be able to do it on a Saturday morning because I won't have the kids that week. For anybody that didn't know, I'm now by myself sometimes. So there will be some Saturdays I could do it potentially, which might be quite nice. Um, Bashir, but Fernandez or Foden for the first 2 game weeks? Well, if we just looked at fixtures, Man City have Chelsea away, then Ipswich at home. Man United, where have they gone? There they are, have Fulham at home, Brighton away. If we look at it as just the fixtures, I think you still just go Foden. But if we're looking at it in terms of minutes, I think with minutes, I would think I would go Bruno if you're only looking at the first 2 game weeks. Personally, got no idea whether Foden's going to play those first 2 games. Pep's come out and said they will get minutes against Chelsea or Ipswich. He doesn't know which, and it's just too much uncertainty for me. Bruno, 90-minute man, gets penalties. Do I think Man United are going to be much better this year? No. I have no idea what we're going to be like, but I think for security of minutes, Bruno over Foden, and also there's a bit of a price difference, isn't there? Isn't it 1.5 million difference there? If we go on midfielders, Foden 9.5, Bruno 8.5. Yeah, so you could do a lot with that mill, couldn't you? Right, let's go back to the questions. Helen, another question: Raya and Anderson, or a 4.5 million defender, or Saliba and a 4.5 million goalkeeper? Well, you've seen it from my team. I've gone Raya and Anderson. I think that's the way to go. Personally, I think that saving's nice. You could, Gabriel or Saliba could get an attack and return. Raya could also easily, if it's 1-0, whatever, do quite well. We've seen as well with the way these bonus points have changed, those central defenders are going to find it tough to get bonus points. So I think Raya's not a bad shout personally. And also, goalkeepers get more points for goals now. And then Helen, sorry, just see Vicky Davis asked pretty much the same question. No worries, absolutely fine. So I think that's all the questions we've got so far. I think if I'll leave it going for another couple of minutes and see if we get any more questions. Do let me know, by the way, if you like this, if this is a better way of doing it. I feel like I can answer way more questions, and I feel like it's better than doing a Zoom where I spend 10 minutes with each of you, but I only get kind of 40 minutes. I feel like this is a better way of doing it. But let me know. Do genuinely, I want the constructive feedback, so do let me know. FPL Rank Chaser, Matt says, my midfield is currently Saka, Gordon, Eze, and Kunku and Joboshlai, with Haaland, Isak, and Armstrong up front. What are your thoughts? Saka, keep an eye on to see whether he's going to be playing straight away. I think he will because Arteta plays him when he's got broken legs, so I'm assuming he'll play him straight away anyway. Gordon's lovely. Eze's fine. I'm not as high on Eze just because, like I said, I think Crystal Palace might not struggle, but I think they're not going to be showing you exactly what we saw last year, especially if Mateta's late back from the Olympics and they've got no Elise. It's going to be just Eze. He is on Penzo, which is quite nice, and we've seen he's a classy player, but I'm a little bit cooler on him. And Kunku's a nice little shout if you can't afford Palmer. And Joboshlai, I think Joboshlai, if we keep seeing from pre-season what we've seen so far, I think he could be a really good shout. Bashir, at least Bruno always finds a way to get points even when Man United's poor. Yeah, no, exactly. He is priced perfectly now, I think. If we have a look at his returns, so his history, he only had the one season where he got over 200 points, and that was ridiculous. That's when he was just doing everything for fun. Since then, he's been getting between 150 and 180, which for 8.5 million, I think is absolutely fine. So I think he's a good shout personally. He normally gets between 8 and 10 goals and between 8 and 10 assists. So he's a good asset to have. And he could blow up any week. And with 2 nice fixtures to start with, I do think I'd pick him over Foden if there's any worries about Foden. James, Johnny says, I prefer this way personally. Caroline says that as well. Oh, lovely stuff. James says, Saka returning to training this week, apparently. Good. We want to see that he's back because I think Foden to Saka will be very, very popular. Like I said, I got Odegaard at the moment, but I think Saka, he is 10 million. So he's a little bit more expensive, but he's on pens. We've seen what you can do. Cage Pap, this seems fine. Could always chuck in a special Zoom a couple of times throughout the season. I could do actually, if you wanted me to. I can also trying to think whether I could get any of you on here as well on the stream, but we'll see. That's for later on down the road. Helen, yes, I really like this, and video will be available later to watch back. Yes, so I'm going to put the video available for the public, so anybody can watch this, but only members of the FPL Academy can join the chat, ask the questions, and all that kind of stuff. So it will still be great for you, hopefully. Caroline Owen, any Man United advice? I would say don't get any Man United to start with, personally, because we had so many false dawns and everybody's very positive because things are starting to go in the right direction. I'd be absolutely shocked if we start the season with hitting the ground running because I just don't see it. I don't see that there's been that much change to make that much of a difference straight away. So Personally, I wouldn't go for any Man United straight away. But if you are debating a Saka, a Foden, and a Bruno, and you're really worried about Saka and Foden's minutes because of what they've done in the Euros, then I don't see the issue of going Bruno, especially if you're going for an early wildcard or something like that. So I don't think Bruno's a bad pick, and I think he is the one I would go for out of everybody. Vicky, this is great, Andy. Not really a Zoom fan. Lovely stuff, Vicky, and thank you for joining us as well. Bashir, Saka or Palmer or Son, who is best to own the first two game weeks? So Saka has Wolves and then Aston Villa at home. First fixture is very, very nice. Wolves weren't great defensively last year. Palmer obviously has Man City, and then he's got Wolves away. Not the greatest of fixtures, but Palmer is just ridiculous. Like he genuinely is. Like I'm seeing him in quite. I'm not seeing him in a lot of drafts, and I'm really surprised because he was first name on my team sheet. Like he is just so good, and you will want him from game week 3 onwards. And then Son. I haven't seen Son in many teams. I know Gianni's been going on about him quite a lot. He's got Leicester away and then Everton at home. Could be a lot worse, couldn't they? And actually, everybody was talking about Ange Postecoglou's Spurs at the beginning of last season. They're now back with more energy again. Could be that Son is the way to go. And actually, do you know what? I don't even know how much Son is. Oh, he's 10. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I think that'd be tough for me. I haven't gone near him, but there are people out there that are very, very hot on him. So I think for me, out of those three, Palmer's easily top for me. Then it's Saka, as long as Saka's going to be getting the minutes. I think they're quite close. And then Son third. James Foden seems the biggest minutes risk from the England lads who are returning, though his first game could be that Ipswich at home. Yeah, it could. But I would be very surprised if people are going to have Haaland and Foden from game week 1. I don't think they will with that first fixture. So it depends which way you want to go personally. I think Foden's good for covering Haaland as long as he gets the minutes. But again, it's about whether he gets the minutes. Cage Pap, Son seems like yesterday's jam. Yes, he does. So lovely stuff. I think we'll kind of end it there, a good 45 minutes. Like I said, if you enjoyed it, let the other people in the academy know as well. I will be posting this, the link to this video on Twitter. Do feel free to go, oh, this was amazing, and like get a few more people to try and join as well. Because I want to try and get about 50 people in the academy before the season starts. Because I think that would be great. We've got a lovely community already, and we just want to keep building it if we can. So, like I said, this will always be private for us, and then I'll post it public so people can watch it if they want to. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is our maiden stream, so you are the OG people that we're here to start with, and I will see you hopefully again soon. I'll do one again hopefully next week. If you're all about, we can easily do one again next week and we can look a bit more at your drafts. Maybe I can put a few more on the screen for you. All right, but thank you very much, and we will see you all again soon. Bye-bye.